It's now day 2 of the flower pot project. So it's been about 23 hours since I did this. I came in this morning, unwrapped the clay, put all the pieces out on my board, and then lightly tented them with plastic, which just means I took the saran wrap, draped it over so that it dried slowly. The heat on's in my room. It's pretty dry in here. So I didn't want it to dry out before I could get a chance to put it together, which I knew was going to be later because I had meetings this afternoon. So it's now just after 3 o'clock and I'm ready to do things. As the day went on, I turned them over, moved them to new spots, just sort of checked up on how things were drying because I did make a side. One side is much thinner than my other sides. One side's kind of in between, and then 2 sides are about the thickness they should be. So I was a little inconsistent on this, but I was also getting grumpy last night and I just didn't feel like we're doing this. You should do better. You're getting graded on this. I will give this to my mother and she'll still love it. So the flower pot construction today, we're going to take these 5 pieces. We're going to score all of the sides and we're going to use that lovely distilled white vinegar to join all of the edges. So just to give you an idea, I don't know if you can see this. I'm kind of a medium soft leather hard. It's right in between. I would like to be able to pick this up and have it completely hold its own shape. But this is close enough. I think I can work with it as long as I don't get carried away. So my preference would be for it to be a little bit stiffer. I'd like to also get home today, so that is more my preference. So watch your clay. All right, I checked on it about every hour during the day. You know, it's like a little baby. You got to watch it, or it's gonna do things you don't want it to do. So I'm going to turn the camera on, the other camera, and switch views, and I'll take you through the construction process. Some of this is going to be quite boring. You have to scratch all of the sides. So remember the scratch to attach or score and slip. In this place, we're doing vinegar instead of the slip. So I will fast forward through most of that till we get to the actual scratching part. Now, because I did a double-sided print, I have squares on one side, and this one is going to be on the inside of my pot, and I'll tell you in a second. And then I did the honeycomb pattern on the other. Look and see how your patterns came out, because some of them, like this one, the squares aren't terribly pronounced, whereas on this piece of clay, they look great. So I'm going to put this piece on the front side, and the ones where the pattern's a little indistinct, I'm going to put that on the inside. I also did a kind of different pattern on my base. I decided ahead of time because I wanted it to be opposite of the other pot I made, which had the honeycomb on the inside. This one I'm doing the squares. And then I flipped it and I did the leaf and the flower pattern on this will be the bottom. So I think that's all I need to say about that. Let's start putting this thing together. I've got my pieces set up. This is going to be the base. And then I flipped around. I'm going to use these 2 on the outside as the honeycomb pattern. And then these 2 on the outside as my square pattern. So the first thing that I'm going to do with this, I've strategically gone through it. I'm going to start constructing how I would do this. So before I do any scratching, any attaching, I just kind of want to walk through how I think I'm going to set this up. I know this piece is going to be my base, and this is my thickest wall that I have. So I am actually going to, I think, start by joining these 2 together so that this thick piece is being supported by the board and the weight of it isn't pulling down the other pieces. I'm going to last attach this piece, which is very thin. It's really almost too thin for this. I wish it had been a little thicker. After that, it doesn't so much matter as long as I get my pattern correct. So I'm going to go ahead and start scratching things. And unlike the mistake I made with the flower pots boxes, or the folding boxes that we'd made last time, I'm going to remember to scratch not just the edges, but I'm going to go ahead and scratch along the inside where it joins. So you just don't want to do this willy-nilly. You need a little bit of planning at first. All right, I've gotten all the pieces scratched and I'm ready to attach with the vinegar. So interestingly, as I have been working out on this, it started out too soft. It is now getting quite firm, almost too firm. So it is funny just how quickly, you know, conditions with clay can change. So it's only been about a half hour since I started this, and in just that amount of time, it's interesting. So I don't want to mess around with this too much. So I've got my vinegar here, dipping in the paintbrush, and I'm just gonna go for it and start putting this together. So before I started today, I made sure last night that I trimmed my nails so they're all nice and short. What I am doing, I'm firmly joining this to the base. And I can see the vinegar bubbling out a little bit. That makes me happy. And because I can get to this one and it is my first one, I'm gonna just sort of lightly do that. That barely left anything. And I'm going to take my finger and just really make sure that this first joint is nice and sealed. I won't be able to get to all those joints like I'm able to get to this one. But because it's the first one and it's going to be supporting a weight for a while, I really kind of want to make sure it's in the right spot. I'm also going to go get a sponge for a second, one of the biscuit sponges. So I'm back with a biscuit sponge. It is very wrung out. You can see it's wet, but it's not dripping. And that'll help me as I go smoothing it out in later stages. So this part should go fairly quickly. At least you hope it does. So I'm just gonna get the vinegar on all the pieces. Now, when I was measuring this out earlier, it looks like I may have accidentally cut one of these on an angle and it's not gonna quite line up. So we'll see. Chances are you're probably gonna cut something out a little incorrect as well. So having me sort of help show you how to remedy that when we get towards the end will probably only help you. So I'm making sure the edges are all kind of lined up. Looks squished into me. Turn this around so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm squeezing on the back with this and just pressing in. And I'm going along in increments at first just to make sure it's tacked down everywhere. And then I'm going to come in and see it's not quite, oh, it's really not attached on this side. So this is going to take a good bit of force. Like I said, this is now almost too dry. It does not take long for it to go to one extreme to the other. Woo! And this is what happens when you try to do this. So I may not have had my scratches deep enough. So we'll see. So this is totally, the other time I wrecked it like 3 times doing it. So don't think that this is gonna be seamless all the time. It won't be. I feel like that's a bit better. All right, let's try this again. I'm just gonna tent these pieces while I'm working on the other ones just to keep them from drying out anymore. And also that side, because it's starting to get dry. Okay, I'm not going to get that perfect at the moment because if I work at getting it perfect without the other support, it's going to fall apart, which it might actually fall apart on me anyway. I'm not feeling so great about these joints, I got to be honest. All right, I'm going to lay this down and take some of the weight off what I have joined. Oh goodness. Yep, we're going to be doing some work on this one for a little while. Okay. Okay, so right here I've got a side that's clearly not hanging together. So I've gone ahead, rescored it a little bit and drop some vinegar down it, and I'm going to pinch it together. Now I'm going to trim this top. So if it doesn't come out precisely the way I want it to, I'm okay with that, but the side has to join. So I don't care that it's unlevel here, that there's a little bit more up. I don't like what's going on with this edge over here. This one is fine. What this one is doing, I have no idea. It's like, I don't know. It's not doing what I want. I'm just gonna take that off for now because it's bothering me. Okay, that's a little better. Not wholly convinced this is really gonna stick together. It seems like this side is really not. Yep, that's what I was afraid was happening with that. It felt good, and then I was like, nope. Welcome to the wild world of joining ceramics. The good news is I think it's a different side than fell off the last time. this is, you know what, the other one went together so much better because it was not on videotape. Because when you videotape things, it always goes wrong. Okay. I think now is the time while you've got these 3 sides on and one side open. Now is the time to go in, not knock your side off like I just did, and like tidy up your inside there because you're never going to be able to get into it as well as you can now, particularly if you have larger hands. My hands can slip in some places that other people's are not going to be able to. All right, so last piece, I think based on what I have learned, I'm going to make these cuts just a little deeper before we start. Don't worry about messing up the pattern along the edges. I mean, you have to. It's also a flower pot, so no one's really gonna see it on the inside because there's gonna be dirt there. Whoa! As your clay gets more firm, it does become more brittle. And so, and it, particularly if you made your pieces a little too thin, as I have made mine, I nearly snapped the side off just then. All right, so I have to turn this over and give some attention to this inside seam, which is not together. I'm gonna stand it up. Oh, so I've got 2 problems here. This edge is crap. I just don't even know what happened. And it's clearly not sticking together well. This edge is also having some issues, so I'm going to rescore that. So if this happens, this is pretty common. I don't know if you can see, but I'm taking the knife all the way down to about here. And I'm just kind of, even if it's not going up, I'm gonna score it and then I'm gonna go back and forth as it goes up. And I'm just gonna dribble a little bit of the vinegar down there. All right, let's take a look at this one. There's a lot of excess clay up and down the side. I don't know why, but I don't really like it, so I'm gonna take some off. And I'm actually gonna tear this away and do the same thing I was doing. It's cracked a little bit more on the inside, kind of all the way down, to be honest. So I'm gonna try to pinch that together and smooth it. So part of what has happened here is this wall is so thin and the pattern is so deep on that side, it's actually tearing where the pattern is. So make your walls thicker, you won't have this problem. I was going too dainty. But it is starting to come together now. I'm feeling like this will turn into an actual pot that will be usable. And this is the part where you want the wet sponge, just the mildly damp sponge, to just finish this edge off. But I'm going to join this side before I do too much of that, or it's just going to keep tearing. So once you get to this point, make sure that your seams are good along the edges. And then start sort of cleaning it up with the sponge. A lot of this clay is now at a firm leather hard. And you'll still see where you get problems. I'm still going to cut the top off of this, so I'm not terribly concerned about this little top edge, but I don't want it to lead to tearing further down, so I'm just going to try to repair it. I was going to let it firm up overnight and then trim my edge, but I think it is so firm that I'm going to be able to do that before I leave tonight. So smooth what you can in the inside. If yours is in any way still wet, which some of mine is still on the edge of that, you're actually better off letting this firm up overnight, wrapped, and then coming along and smoothing it, because you won't let it won't tear at that point. So I'm kind of torn. I think I'm still gonna let it firm up overnight before I put the hole in the bottom, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and do the edges now, and then you guys will see that process. To make the edges, I'm gonna look at my high side and my low side, and I feel like, so I'm gonna get down level with the pot. I am down looking at the edge of the pot, figuring out where my low sides and my high sides are. So I've got the ruler in the bottom. The height doesn't so much matter as the consistency. So this side is hitting, the low side is right there. So this is where, if you've got an X-Acto knife, you want it, because and you should not cut in towards your hands. If I'm being an idiot. All right, I'm gonna come around here. So it looks like my lowest bit, I'm gonna trim it to 5 3/4 all the way around. I almost wouldn't have to. I nailed it pretty close, but I'm just gonna do it because some of my edges are ridiculous. So what I'm gonna do with that, mark on the pot. I'm gonna come over here to this edge and mark again. And then, now I'm not cutting through, I'm just leaving myself a mark of where I'm going to cut. Remember when you do this to be looking dead level at it, or it's not gonna work. Now I'm gonna go ahead and cut on that line. So got an issue there, kind of an issue there. That one I may be able to fix. All right, I need to re-wet my sponge. Welcome back. It's day 3 of this project. It's about 7 minutes after noon on Thursday. So we started this on Tuesday. So we're about to wrap up. The only thing I have to do today is to put the drain hole in the bottom. So this is where, if you have an X-Acto knife, this will come into handy. And then I also, because I'm in the art room, have a set of circle templates to use to carve the circles for the bottom. So we're putting in the drain hole. Here we go. Okay, here is the flower pot. Now we peeked at this at class this morning, but I'm going to take it out again. As you can see, I didn't have it wrapped up tightly. One of the things I realized that I haven't talked to you guys about is the process of what I call tenting. And tenting is where you have a piece like this that you're trying to dry out, but you don't want it to dry out too fast. And so you merely drape plastic over it so that it's kind of loose. You haven't tightly wrapped the project, but it's still, it has some ventilation spots, but all parts of it are covered over. This is really important to do for the next stage of drying that we're gonna go to when I want this to completely dry out. But I don't want it to dry out too fast because that can lead to cracks. And if you ever are working on a project that has various thicknesses of clay, that's a really important step to take because things that have less clay tend to dry out faster than thicker parts, and then they can shear off. Tenting is your solution. So if we look at this, this is now a hard leather hard. I hope it's not too hard. I probably should have done this first thing this morning. Again, the walls on this are very thin. I will kind of be shocked if I don't wreck this doing this. So I'm going to look at the bottom. It looks okay. There's a couple little chunks of clay that got on there that shouldn't. So now we've got it. You guys can hopefully see what I'm doing. We want to put the hole right about here. If we look at my other one, nope, yep, there we go. It's not too big a cross, right? There it is in conjunction with my thumb. And you can see, I think I did about 3/4 of an inch around. On this, it looks like size 15 is what I chose. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. You want it to be big enough that you can put a little piece of rock over it, and keep your soil in, but let your water out. So because I used a split thing, I can immediately tell where the halfway mark is on my piece, which makes this very convenient. So I don't have to measure, I can just eyeball it. And what I'm gonna do is just kind of put it where I want it. Yeah, that looks good. I'm gonna lose that little tip of the leaf, which is sad, but that's okay. So I'm not cutting through with this, I'm merely marking. Okay. Now I'm gonna take the sharp X-Acto knife. And this is very firm, so I'm gonna do this in some pieces. And what I might actually do is cut it in the center. That cuts through pretty easily. And if you're doing this at home, this might be a time where you might want to use the other end of this tool because you can cut through and then sort of gently remove and scrape up some of this clay. taking just a moistened sponge, cleaning out the little area in it, just getting rid of some of those ridges. And then also, I didn't turn this over yesterday to deal with the bottom because it was just too fragile. I feel like it will hold up to a little bit of pressure today. So I'm just cleaning up the bottom here. Quite know what's going on with this. This might be something I should just leave alone. Because it's me, I'm not going to. I'm just going to turn this in, do a little bit more cleanup work on the inside, not too much. Looks good. Now, for the most important part. Don't forget your initials in the ear. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this project. Hopefully you've gotten something usable that's held together and you're feeling okay about. I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Take care.